and I will speak again. Very soon.
Because their vocal cords have been surgically removed, these men are now using the esophagus to produce sound. Both teacher Horace Edmondson and student Frank Millar are laryngectomies. The larynx has been removed as a treatment for cancer.
Now, exercise and relax the segment. Say. All right. Say. By that. Right.
In early stages, irradiation can be an alternative to surgery. It weakens, but does leave the vocal cords intact.
I begged for cobalt or radium, anything. Don't do this. But I didn't have the fear of him dying. I felt quite sure he'd come through it. But my only fear was isolation, that he would lock himself off and want no one to see him, which is very prevalent, this.
Since the larynx is the upper part of the trachea or windpipe, removal leaves no connection between mouth and lungs. A surgically made hole in the lower neck now provides respiration. Before surgery, sound was produced by air passing over the vocal cords. Now, the esophagus has become a substitute. Air is swallowed, then forced up, causing the walls of the esophagus and pharynx to vibrate, producing a low-pitched sound which is then shaped by the mouth into speech.
O, A, E, I, O. Stay outside. After surgery in the recovery room, when I woke, I knew what had happened. Simply because that I'd been around several veterans that had had laryngectomies several weeks before. And I knew and felt be very silent for a while. But I'd heard of the American Cancer Society teachers saw the speech.
Tell me this, is it an unusual feeling
Very unusual.
to be silent for the first
Silent.
time in your life that you
There
can
is.
remember? Do you remember?
You try to remember what a voice was like. Sometimes you can almost feel it. Ah. T, die, do, say, T, die, do, say. Very good. State, tax, stop, watch. There's other problems that your laryngectomies can have other than going through a silent period. A family problem, for instance. A child, or the wife, or the man, whichever it might be, would in turn to make the laryngectomy very nervous and be very difficult to teach. That's why if we asked family cooperation, even before we begin the lessons.
This type of cancer does affect the entire family because the loss of speech, the total lack of communication. Now, I had two children, quite small. This was a baby, and I had a 10-year-old boy. And I think our middle boy was harder to adjust to it because he was at an age where maybe it embarrassed him a little when he was learning to talk in front of his friends. The little one never knew any difference. This is the only voice he's ever known.
About the only thing I can remember, we were at a slot car track one time, and when we went to go pay for the money, the guy was a little impatient. He couldn't understand my dad. And my dad kept trying to explain to him that we owed him $2 or something, and the guy couldn't understand him. And I got kind of uneasy about that. I had some problems with, friends of mine, because they asked me uneasy questions like, why doesn't your dad, talk like everybody else? What's his problem? And I'd have to go into detail about everything. I didn't really let it bother me that much. Because if I let it bother me, it'd worry me to death.
His teacher would give me a mimeograph sheet of paper with words on it, and then we were to come home and drill on these words. They get to a point where they try so hard and they can't say a word. They have to be relaxed in order to do this. Oh yes, I got many boxes of Kleenexes thrown at me. And I'd sit on one side of the table and he on the other, and sometimes I'd get the Kleenex because he'd try so hard and couldn't say anything. And there was a child in the grocery store one time. She had a sack of ice cream salt. So Horace told her, he said, if you'll give me some of that ice cream you're going to make, I'll let you go on ahead. And she turned and looked at him, and said, Mister, you talk just like Donald Duck. But of course you don't get upset with children. But there's always rude people who don't take the time to listen. He speaks clear enough. If anyone will just take the time and the patience and give him a minute, you can understand anything he says, I think. Well, fun anyway. Yeah. I think it brings you closer together, and until they learn to speak, you're more dependent upon each other, and instead of getting you further apart, it brings you together.
Now, Greg, say, take that out. Take that out. Very good. And my brother and I operated delivery service. When I would go back to Veterans Hospital for a checkup, I would see different laryngectomies and visit. Sit down on the side of the bed, talk with, teach them a word or so. And several years later, I decided to help. I thought that my future to help people was more important than operating a delivery service. Say, anytime you're ready, say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
It's what? Before.
It's a great feeling to have a man speak again.